So Tress of the Emerald Sea, a Cosmere novel by Brandon Sanderson. So I'm going to get you to pop that back up, Christina.
All right, okay.
So I have to say, this was kind of a return to the fantasy genre for both of us, but not the type of fantasy genre that I am used to reading. So for me, it was really like a palate cleanser, you know, a really refreshing change, because even though it was fantasy, it was something totally different. And in terms of narrative voice, I find it so refreshing. It was almost like, I don't know, I had a specific accent that I could hear. And it was almost like a voiceover from, you know, a movie, a fairy tale movie.
It reminded me of, do you know, Stardust?
Yes.
That their sort of narration over the top of it. And I don't know, that really helped immerse me into it. It was
the world.
so different.
The narrative voice was so powerful.
Yeah.
But it had an, you know, like received pronunciation, you know, that a very English,
absolutely,
upper crust kind of, you know, the Queen's English accent, and it really was, that added so much to the telling of the tale. And the narrative voice initially, I don't know if you felt the same way, but I was kind of confused. Was it first person? Was it third person? Because you had the narrative voice, you had the narrator who was both a character speaking in the first person, but was also omnipresent.
Yes.
The entire way through. Yeah. So it was...
I think it was one of those books, like at the start, my brain went into it as a third person text. But then the I started coming in and I'm going, who's have I missed here? Something? Yeah. You know? And I think that nearly made the text so much more engaging for me, because it was Tress's story, but we were seeing it through the lens of another character. Through
another character, but also someone who was speaking completely objectively at times as well. So it was nearly like you had to leave all of your preconceived notions of narrative voice, storytelling at the door, because this text literally took you on a fantasy journey. It was
it was fantastical, I think, in its journey that it took us on. You know, I just
had the text, and this is not reductive, and I don't mean this reductive to the text at all, because I thoroughly enjoyed it and would recommend it to anybody and everybody of all ages, really. You know, it has that universal appeal. Had it begun or opened with Once Upon a Time, I wouldn't have... You know, it could have, you know, and it would have been a lovely touch to it.
Yeah.
But, you know, and the whole way through, and the same thing, and they all lived happily ever after at the end. So it was that kind of fantasy.
It did. It had that fairy tale opening and also that fairy tale resolution at the end.
So the narrative voice then was very powerful at the start, and obviously throughout the unraveling of
stronger.
The plot.
Yeah.
But the thing that I really had to kind of, because it's not, it wouldn't be, if I'm being honest, a text that I would lift and think, okay, I'm going to really read
sink
that. Sink my teeth into it. So it was very kind of change for me, shift in gear. So I had to get used to that.
I feel like it was one of those books that you had to willingly immerse yourself because the world building was so
that's
intense.
What I was going to come to there, was the world building, because there was nothing that was vaguely recognizable. There was nothing even that you could bring to, you know, from your own experience into the text. You had to allow the text and the storyteller kind of create everything for you. And there's a lot of trust that you're putting in the hands of the author to do that. And he did that really well, because for me, that was the big takeaway from the text, aside from the action and the plot and the character growth that we'll come to. But the big takeaway from that was, I really didn't understand fully just how much, you know, I brought to a book and how much nearly steer I wanted to have control. It was, so for this, I was relinquishing control of everything that I knew.
I know.
Does that make sense? I know that maybe it sounds a tad over dramatic.
No, I understand. I think with most fantasy books that I've read, there is an element of realism that I can connect to the world I live in. But in this, there was like the spore sea. My head was completely trying to put this picture together. You know, what is this like? How does the sea move? Do you know what the sea?
Even the color of the sea, the fact that it was green.
If water touches the sea, what the spores would do and all that. My brain was really, and it only took me maybe until about halfway that I had sort of
got to grips with it.
Yeah, but it didn't hinder my enjoyment of the book at all.
Not at all.
It was just me really trying to work. I love picturing stuff, and see when I can't, it's like.
But this text really allows you to do that. And I know that we kind of been talking as we were reading during the week, and you had told me that this is a standalone text that he has. There's a Cosmere series, so a lot of people who read this and enjoy this perhaps would already have been familiar with that.
So what I had read online was that this book, it's a Cosmere novel, and there are other books within this world, a part of a series. This here is a standalone, and you don't need to have read the other ones, but from my understanding, it would be helpful to help you get to grips with, that world building. It would just be another layer that you wouldn't have to work towards.
But for someone, for the likes of us who were coming to this cold, for want of a better word, you can delve into it. That doesn't detract from your enjoyment
absolutely.
either.
And I think as well, this book was a gift for his wife, who was a fan of the Princess
Bride.
That, yes,
that got me as well.
Yeah,
that
he's a romantic at heart. So,
but there was, and the romance is I suppose is at the heart of this, and it's a typical kind of fairy tale romance.
Yeah,
but it's not at the same time.
Yeah, I feel like the romance in it, because we only really got that at the start and the end, and obviously she's fighting to get to the man she loves. But that wasn't the main plot point. Romance nearly took a back seat from
very much,
the middle on.
It was really more a book, I would say, about character growth and development and determination, resilience, loyalty, friendship, all of those things coming to the fore. And at the end, the romance just feeds into that story and growth.
Yeah, and I think it's done. And do you know the way in some books the romance can just be so in your face, and there's these massive proclamations of love, and inwardly you're going, ugh. This was so nice, because it was literally, oh, did I ever tell you I loved you? Yeah, me too. And that was it. And they were just, but I feel like from the get-go, even though we didn't know who Tress and Charlie were, I bought in so much to how much they liked each other in their interaction with each other, with him being the storyteller, and then even when he was sent away to find his bride, sending the cups back to her.
I loved that. Yes. That was quirky.
It was lovely.
I loved that. And the fact that the cups, the ship that they ended up on at the very end was called the Two Cups.
Yes, it was very fitting.
And I collect shoes and stuff like that, as you well know, so I could relate to,
she was she was relatable, and I think that humanized her, because I think what the author was trying to do was show us, especially for, I think, little girls and stuff, because again, this book is really any ages. It is such a lighthearted, lovely read. I think it does show little girls, like, you can be or think that you're as ordinary, as unimportant as anybody, but there is always something very, very special, and you can go out and, like Tress did, go on a journey, become a leader, I don't know, I just
an adventure. It was an adventure, and it talked about kind of, it really dealt with the concepts of fear and bravery in a very unique way and dynamic. It really did. I have to say that I had figured out, probably because of the fantasy element, the fairy tale element, I had figured out from the get-go. I think I was very proud of myself. Huck was and his significance. I thoroughly enjoyed Hoyd, the
Oh,
narrator,
loved him. He
and
just,
Tress, but his humor.
it was just, I think it was the fact he had that curse, but in the narration, he's still so self-aware, you know, so he's like, at this point of the novel, I'm ashamed to admit it, but I was contemplating how good a style socks and sandals are. And I'm like, even at the end when he defeats the sorceress, and he's like, and at this point I was wearing a Hawaiian shirt, yellow shorts and
that were too
socks
short.
with sandals.
Yes.
And it's like, what?
It was. There were lovely one-liners, and almost, that's being able. What I thought Hoyd, the narrator, did really well in terms of his humor was, it was self-depreciating. He was able to,
Laugh at himself,
laugh at his, kind of mistakes and
even when
situations.
Tress was kind of getting frustrated with him, he was like, I would be annoyed too if I was her.
Yeah.
So
he could he could understand that. And I think, to me, the thing that I could relate to in terms of Hoyd, despite the fact that he was so eccentric, and I know that we have talked about this before in terms of his attire and the kind of really strange clothing that he wore. When you look back in pictures maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and you're thinking,
what was I wearing?
Was I wearing? What was I thinking? Who let me go out there?
Yeah.
There was an element of that there, but none of us were under a curse.
Absolutely.
And that's the issue.
Oh, I feel like I love Tress, but Hoyd was probably my favorite character only because he was so funny.
He was the central storyteller, which was unusual.
Even his curse was so funny in that it was just a bet. That
it was, but I suppose there's character growth there, that tinge of arrogance as well.
Oh, absolutely. But I just was like, of course it was.
And do you know what I found was so funny was how Sanderson, kind of circumvented the. Whenever they went into the trials where the captain of the ship was taking her into the dragon.
Oh, yes.
And even that little flip, the captain didn't see Tress's action and how Tress was victorious. She, it wasn't that there was never a sense of the traditional damsel in distress.
Oh, no, Tress. And it was Hoyd saying, you have everything you need.
Yeah.
Do you know?
And that was true, but and this again, most people will maybe have a go at me for saying this, but I always quite liked the damsel in distress stories. I think that they have a part to play as well.
Absolutely. I get that.
I don't think that there was
but
anything.
I think in this day and age we have completely overdone the damsel trope, and I have read countless books with damsels in distress, and I mean, I swoon. I just love a fresh book, where.
But that's what I think.
Yes,
and it's not a book that's in your face where that's the flag that it's wearing.
No, absolutely not.
Because it's so much richer and more complex than that. But it's complex in its simplicity, and I know there's a contradiction again.
No, but I understand that, and I feel like you have to read the book in order to fully understand that. Like, even her going off to save Charlie, it wasn't a case of, well, I'm strong, I'm fierce, I'm brave, I'm bold. Like, there was none of that. It was just, my friend is in need and nobody else is doing anything. Yeah. I'm going to go and save him. It wasn't for glory, it wasn't for fame, it wasn't so that the king would grant her anything special. It was just that.
But what particularly stood out for me in the text in terms of Tress's character, in addition to what you've just said there, was when she was successful in not being, if you like, enslaved to the dragon in the Crimson Sea. And he had said, well, look, you've been successful, I have to give you a boon. And what do you want? And I will grant it to you. So he couldn't tell her anything about the sorceress. He wouldn't tell her anything. And she then said, well, look, there's nothing that I want for me, but, you know, would you swap that out with 3 smaller ones instead of 1 larger one?
I love that
And
bit.
I thought that was, you know,
But I
thinking
was
of
like,
the needs of others.
Whenever she said that, I was like, what 3 things does she need?
Yeah.
And then whenever she had given the wee
The spectacles.
the letter for I can't even
Sally with
her dad's location, and then
the board.
The
I
board.
loved that concept
did
for
I.
fort. And even the fact that they're, you know, in terms of communication, sign language and the way that they were signing at the end of the book, and it was also subtly, you know, woven in there.
Yeah.
And it was really about the value of each and every person.
Character, yeah.
That there was no, you know, the way whenever we talk about in the world around us, and that's what I think so great about fantasy and fairy tale, because you're carried along on these stories, and yet they're showing you that there's no one person who's better than.
It's all normal.
That irrespective of what your gifts and your talents, your abilities are, you have value to add in the world today. In a world which is seeking to, you know, normalize a particular look, a particular style, a particular value system. You know, whether that is everything goes, which I don't ascribe to, as you well know, or a case of that it's only if you are you look a certain way, you dress a certain way, that you have any merit or value. You know, that if you have some kind of a disability, whether that's hearing, whether you're mute, whether you're blind, you know, that these people were integral to the
and do you know what, I think
the plot.
It was really showing that our differences are what make us, you know, not, I don't want to say unique because it come across as a cliche, but like that every single person there offered something of value in Tress's journey, and it wasn't because of their differences, but I feel like whenever we see someone, you know, with a disability, our first instinct is, oh, we should feel sorry for them, you know, when really we should just be treating them as people, and they're completely self-sufficient with, do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And the tragedy about it is, you know, it takes a text essentially, and I did say that this was a universal text, that it would appeal to all ages, whether it's adults or young people. But how does that, like, children are so accepting and so tolerant, and they don't see difference, and that's what that text taught me, you know. And I keep thinking about, because I had initially thought, and I'm going to say this hands up, and I did confess this to you during the week, I thought, oh my goodness, Christina, I love this book. I really love it. I'm really reading it. It's a very different style of book from what I'm used to, but I'm going to struggle, you know, for things to talk about.
Yeah.
Because how, you know, it's not a case of talking in the same way about as
we have I get that,
But my takeaway, as I was kind of, once I'd finished the book and I was thinking about, okay, what's my takeaway from this, is what this has taught me about society, and how we need to become, you know, much more accepting and less judgmental and less focused on the external, and the ability for people to change, like Laggart in that, who was fundamentally, he was a blackguard, for want of a better expression, and not a good character, but that he had made bad choices. Again, that you got a little bit of his context, you know, not that excused it, but a little bit of mercy, a little bit of forgiveness.
Even the way Tress handled him, you know, he came to her saying, you're going to throw me over the ship or murder me or whatever, and she goes, no, I never thought once of killing you, but if it makes you feel any better, I will send you to the brig. And he was like, and he just walked away dazed, and she was like, I'm not going to go back and tell him to go to the brig, you know.
Yeah.
But do you know who I was thinking of whenever you said about being capable of change? And this isn't like a major change, but I mean, I was rooting for her the whole time, was Anne.
Okay,
You know,
in what way?
so she's the assistant cannon master.
Oh, yes.
And she can't fire a shot on target to save her life.
Well, I could relate to that.
And even
I giggled.
somehow it goes forward, but it hits the man behind her. Like, I just...
Again, there was humour in that too.
Yeah, and it was just something so simple as her getting the spectacles, but I think it was realistic in that she wasn't a perfect shot at all, but then we had that lovely moment between her and Liger.
Yes, where he was helping, you know, to kind of, you know, get her aim and positioning
but
right.
But I don't even... I think it was more her confidence at that point, because as soon as he gave her a set of instructions, it was nearly her
who did
telling him, okay,
it, yes.
Point it up now, you know, and she was able to work out from then, you know.
That sometimes you need, that it's okay, that there are going to be times when you're either giving the help, but there are also times when you're also going to need it, that it's not always about being victorious or heroic. And I think that kind of Tress's little monologue at the end, I don't even think it was a monologue, but that kind of as she was talking talking to the sorceress, that was what...
That was a big thing for her through the novel. I feel like she was... It wasn't nearly like she was trying to be a martyr as such. It was... I just felt like she was so selfless that she couldn't imagine putting anyone in harm's way to fulfill her... Like, for her, this was always a solo mission. And whenever she started accruing these people, it nearly felt like I have got so many people that are relying on me, and I don't want them to be in harm's way.
Well, again, that brings in a much deeper kind of concept again, and it's only as you start going through it, you know, that responsibility, your responsibility to others versus your own personal ambition. Yeah. And when does your personal ambition become damaging and dangerous to those around you, to those who are investing in you? And I suppose if you take that at its very simple level in terms of a family level, whether that's the role of a mother, father, or you know, sibling, you know, if your ambition is going to cause your family hardship or whatever, you have to have a discussion with them. And, you know, it's about forging your way forward as a unit, even within a marriage, you know. So again, you have these really complex dynamics and concepts.
But even from that, like, and I think I'm just sort of giving another, basically parroting back what you've said, but I think it also shows that as a society, we all have a responsibility for each other, you know, as well. Like, that they're saying it takes a village to raise a child, that thing. But it takes every single person in society working for the benefit of each other, you know, for any good.
But it comes down to that kind of objective sense of morality, objective sense of right and wrong, to a sense of kind of knowing that good people can sometimes do bad things. That doesn't make them bad, but that they can kind of seek, you know, that repentance, forgiveness, and, you know, trying restorative justice, trying to restore the wrong that they, you know, to right the wrong that they've done, and paying that forward. You know, there was a lot of very deep moral kind of teachings and behaviors within this that were not, you know, the way sometimes books, when they're pontificating to you, and I'm not even sure that that's Sanderson's.
Probably he was just thinking,
you know,
here's my laptop, here wifey, here's a lovely book for you. But no, but then it's probably something that's ingrained within him then, in his subconscious, you know, that he knows.
Could be,
you know, and it's just came out through his writing. There's one character on the boat we haven't really spoke about at all, which was Captain Crow. Okay. Yes. Captain Crow was
she was a piece of work. Now she was.
I thought that she was going to.
What was her
flip a switch?
But did she?
No, she didn't. No, but there was a moment when I thought she was, or when I thought there was a possibility. that she would. There was something, I can't remember exactly what happened, but she was kind enough to her crew. I suppose when she let Tress stay on the ship, I thought, well, here's a person, quite awful, not very kind, but because she let Tress stay on the ship, I thought she was testing her strength of will and stuff,
Okay.
her. And I was like, she's probably going to come good. And there was another moment in the text, I can't really remember, but I feel like in that she didn't turn, good. It was nearly Sanderson saying, we all have the potential, but some of us maybe
We'll
don't
choose differently.
don't try to reach that potential. There's goodness, and I feel like I'm a part. I say stuff like this every week, but there's goodness inherently within us.
Yes,
but
that's fundamentally
some people
human
choose,
nature, that you are capable of. You
well,
make
you're
a choice
capable of anything,
you're
but
capable of. Well, it's dependent on what informs your moral values and whether you are going to put ruthless ambition before others.
See, I think with Crow, I could understand to an extent her sort of brutality in that she was living with this terminal disease, and that was her objective, trying to go to the dragon so she could get the cure, and just be a ruthless pirate. But I feel like she was almost too ruthless in that she proved she didn't need those spores to be an awful person. She could do it all on her own, and she nearly had a control of them, which just heightened this sense. Like, people were like, she should have been dead last year. It just sort of showed what is wrong with this person.
Well, she did. I think that her comeuppance was that she paid the price in that she was the trade-off for the dragon. She lost her freedom. That in order to remain healthy, she had to stay with him, and he wouldn't have told her that had she been successful in trading Tress. Try saying that after a glass of Prosecco. I'm quite proud of myself. But there's that there are consequences for your actions and consequences for your behavior.
Absolutely, and I think that was the best consequence, that she could be cured, but she would have to stay with the dragon.
And I think that, again, that dynamic of making choice.
The dragon sold his slavery to me. I was like, I will willingly come to you and be a slave. He says, so you're employed, you've got a place to sleep, books to read.
Doesn't kind of sounds like being,
a paradise,
a mammy.
No, it does a wee bit. Yeah, but the dragon minus the children. I don't know what work he would make you do. I think was it like cooking, cleaning, blah blah blah.
I don't know, but
as long as I didn't have to pay rent,
quite humorous.
He seemed reasonable. Yeah. I don't know why everyone was saying he was so scary,
but it was definitely. It was a book that, again, was so different that it takes a while to try and understand, to try and grapple with what your takeaway is. So we know that Tress, obviously, was her character arc was her, overcoming obstacles, working together with her friends, not pursuing ruthless ambition at the cost of everything. Recognizing that there are moments in life when you will be the hero, but also when you will need to lean on others. And I think that that's something fundamentally that humans struggle with, or that humanity struggles with, because it's perceived sometimes as a weakness to ask for help.
Yeah.
And yet that was how they successfully slayed the sorceress. It was, it was okay. It was a group effort for help, and she did. She had to ask for help, and I think that for me is possibly one of the greatest things that, especially young people and young children who would be reading this, because in today's world teaches, I think. Again, this might be a generalization, but I still think it doesn't detract from the accuracy of it. that, you know, you have to be successful all the time, you know, that
Girl
you have to
bossing
be.
it.
Pardon?
Girl bossing it. At all point.
I don't get this girl bossing stuff. Stop throwing in things that kind of throw
That's
me.
what Tress was trying to do the whole time. She's trying to be girl boss TM, but it
No,
wasn't
you
happening.
see, I think of a girl boss as something different.
You're thinking of it in the modern sense. I'm thinking Tress was like, I'm strong, independent, girl bossing it. Bye, Mum. I'm away girl bossing today. That's genuinely, I just feel like
I am so confused. I
Yeah,
have no
it's
idea what
just-
she's talking about. Because to me there's a negative connotation.
oh
with
no,
that.
a girl boss can be positive too. Absolutely. Tress is a positive girl boss. I'm a girl boss.
I don't know what a girl boss is.
Right, well,
Christina.
just
it
look at
seems like
me.
a bit of a redundant thing.
It's the definition when you look at me.
I'm still I'm even more confused. Right. Okay, we're going to forget about girl bosses. I have no idea what you're talking
It's in the
about.
back of my head.
Okay. Because I didn't see her coming across there as a boss at all. I saw her like again to come out there and say, but you're taking
But
it
she
to-"
definitely was a leader.
Oh no, she was a leader, yes.
Yeah.
But to be she wasn't out there saying that I'm the best, I'm the greatest, I'm going to do
She was a
whatever.
modest girl boss. She was a humble girl boss.
See that's that's a contradiction in and of itself. It is.
The girlies know.
No, I'm.
If you
what
know,
am
you
I?
know.
I'm a girly.
You're not one of the girlies now.
I don't think I want to be.
Okay,
She
so
floored
let's
me.
talk about Huck now.
Okay, talk about Huck. I loved Huck.
I loved
did.
him too. I don't understand because I was honestly so pissed off because you had said to me it must have been your first meeting of him because you
It
were not
was.
far through the book. You were like, I think Huck's Charlie. And I was like, what? Not a mission.
Christina, how many fairy tales have you read in your life that had to be?
I know, but Mummy, you have no idea. I was still grappling with the spore sea at that point.
Okay.
So Huck I was like, Huck, oh, he's a talking rat. Well done. I because in most fantasy books I read, there is a familiar,
Yeah.
a completely normal thing for me. So I was like, this is just that again. So whenever you said, I ain't Huck's Charlie, I was like, she's so stupid. It's obviously not.
Girl boss.
And then whenever she knows how to use it now. Isn't that so
boss.
funny?
Girl boss.
You were girl bossing it then
I
and
girl
there.
bossed you the whole way.
But no, whenever that big reveal came, I was like, what? Oh, I can't believe she's
I
right.
have to go back and say, no, what you thought was, I can't believe she's right. Again.
I know, because I thought about all the thrillers that we read where you work it out straight away and I'm still going, what is going on here? I don't understand a thing. And then at the very end, I'm shocked.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, I was shocked whenever I found out. I knew that the Charlie that the sorceress brought out wasn't Charlie. I was like, that's far too
Had
easy.
you still not twigged it out at that stage?
No, but then when Huck went away,
Christina,
when
no
Huck went
way.
away all sad, I was like, I wonder if she was onto something there. And then Huck was Charlie.
Not even when Huck betrayed them. You didn't.
No, I was like, oh my God, was he a traitor the whole time? Wait, was he working for Crow? Believe me. Couldn't. And then I understood that. Then I was like, okay, makes sense.
Okay.
Even the things, the subtle things he put in, where he would stutter when talking about the sorceress. I was like, for a stupid reader like me, didn't
That
even
was
catch
too
on. But
nuanced.
no, but it was so subtle that I feel like, do you know the way sometimes whenever a twist is coming, it's so in your face, it's nearly anticlimactic when
Yeah.
it came because you're like, could have worked that out. I could work it out for Hoyd, but I think it was because we were told he was cursed.
Yeah.
Because we weren't told Huck was also cursed, but he was able to talk around it and how you would talk about the curse. Do you know what I mean? Like it was, there were so many subtleties thrown in there that it's nearly like if I was rereading it, I'd be like, oh my God, I see what Mommy was talking about now. It was so obvious.
Just, Christina, just listen to your mummy from now on.
I know. I
mean, as soon
just
as-
wanted you to be wrong this one time.
Just this one time. But, what can I say? I'm the Mary Poppins of mummies.
I was
practically
shocked.
perfect.
Though I did like that because I feel like Huck was such an important part of their journey, and in a sense, it was like Charlie was with her throughout the whole story.
He was.
No, but in my head he wasn't. He was there at the start, and he was going to come back at the end. But I just thought it was so nice that he lived
the same experience
it was nearly reminiscent of his fantastical stories that he would tell Tress. You know, he lived an adventure.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I thought it was lovely.
It was lovely, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. But you know, I had it sus from the minute he opened his mouth. What can I say? I've clearly read far more fairy tales than you have, even though it's been a minute since I've read a fairy tale. Even though, but again, Huck was brilliant. Hoyd, superb. We talked about. I thought the humor of just referring to the rest of the crew as the Dogs. That was so brilliant.
I felt like, do you know what? Because there was so much for my mind to grapple. I was like, thank God they are not throwing a whole pile of names at me, because I would have been confused during this podcast.
No, I just thought that was brilliant.
You know, this is something that transcends all worlds. This name, Doug. I was like, okay. And there was something else that transcended all universes, and it was so normal.
That it stood up. But there were so many clever things that were dropped in. And it was nearly like there were 3 elements to the book, I would say, just whenever you're looking at it. And he did have it, you know, in terms of the structure of the text, it was structured out into different parts. But even within that, we had, you know, the exposition, the opening, the setting up of the story, the love story. You have him going away and to find his wife or whatever, and promising that he would come back. So then you had that. And then the entire middle, right up until about the last 30 pages or so, was all of Tress's adventures and experiences, character growth, all of those things, her adventures, and that romance and that connection was really, it was secondary to her kind of adventure.
It was secondary, but unbeknownst to I, the reader, it was still an undercurrent in the story. It
was an overcurrent, but that's
I didn't know Huck was Charlie.
And then the last, like, the plot was very, very quickly tied up at the end, in the way that all good fairy tales are.
There was none of that dragging it.
No, there was it was very fast paced at the end, and you felt with wow, you know, that it has ended, and it has ended really well, and it wasn't that traditional, even though we did say, or I did say at the end, you know, if they had ended with the happy ever after at the end, it wasn't just that.
I felt like that would have been such a Hoyd thing to do as well. No,
but the fact that it wasn't immediately, you know, you were thinking, well, how is this curse going to be lifted from Charlie? And it wasn't until they returned at the end that, you know, he came out, and even the fact that he came out and he was naked. Clothes would be good here because he'd been running around in rat form. You know, all of that. It wasn't until the very, very, very end. So there was a lovely, lovely arc and development there that even though he did have the fairy tale element of it, he did play about a wee bit where he could kind of stretch in the parameters of that.
Absolutely.
You know, and it was thoroughly enjoyable. So if you had to give it a rating out of 5, Christina?
I would probably give it a 4, and I'm going to tell you why. I thought, and you'll probably agree with me there, I thought that there was bits in the middle where it was very, very drawn out descriptions, you know, of, like weapons and stuff like that. Stuff that, you know, it probably was good, you know, because it did show Tress as being, you know, quite intelligent and, you know, her independence and her willingness to learn and stuff like that. But there was a part where I was like, right, can we just speed this along? Because there was a portion of it where there wasn't really much happening.
Well, I would agree with that. But I'm going to kind of just put a wee caveat beside that and say that if there was, you know, this isn't my natural go-to. It's
Yeah.
not something that I would naturally gravitate towards a text. But for those people who like that, that might
Oh
might be a
yeah,
5 out of 5.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. There, and you know that's the thing about this book. It was one of those books that Sanderson himself said was never supposed to be released, but because of the fans, but he is quite a popular author. They begged and begged and begged, and here we have it, Tress of the Emerald Sea. But it was very mixed reviews from the fans who
Oh,
were
really?
yeah, well, in the sense that his writing, like he has got a few. Well, you can read the first couple of pages. He's a whole pile of series written already, and so he's already known for a certain type of style. And
Did he deviate from it in this?
In a sense, from what I gathered, I haven't read any of his books, so I can only speak in the vaguest terms.
Okay,
But
it's hearsay then.
yeah, it is different to what he's usually produced. He wouldn't really focus on romance or anything like that. And
well, maybe the purists who and again, this was written for his wife. It
Yes.
was loosely. It was because his wife loved The Princess Bride. So, and you can really see that in the style in which he's written it. But I think that in terms of the world building and all of that, it what you didn't like about it, because that's maybe
I loved the world building. It was
the description, the dense description.
In the middle, particularly, it was just so
It was
dense.
maybe too laboured.
That was my part, and I nearly wanted the plot just to kind of move along there, a wee bit. But I enjoyed the world building. I loved how different the world was.
Yeah.
I loved how it was not familiar to anything I know at all.
I would have to agree with that, and I would second everything that you've just said there. In terms of, I would have given it a 4 out of 5 exactly for the same thing. But even as you were talking there, I think that perhaps we're being a little bit harsh because because it was so brilliantly written. It really is.
There are a lot of merits.
It's really just a personal taste thing.
Yeah.
But what I would say is what this text has taught me is that I need to be more patient when I'm reading, and I need to kind of let go of, that kind of control and trust.
Yeah.
And that for me has been such a, so I'm going to say, no, I'm giving it a 5 out of 5 for that reason, because I wasn't able to kind of bring as much of myself to it as before, and I had to allow the author to do what he wanted when he wanted. And in hindsight, I thoroughly enjoyed that process.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, it's like, it's nearly like I didn't realize that it was good for me at the time.
I feel like authors nearly make it too easy for the readers.
Yeah.
know.
And he, like, every word on that page you had to read, but it wasn't a difficult read.
Oh no, it genuinely is such a fun adventure. And if you love fantasy, if you love pirates,
yes,
and it was, to me,
swashbuckling. Yes,
it kind of reminded me, and this might not even work, but that Pirates of the Caribbean-esque sort of thing.
Yeah.
At a point, with...
But it wasn't as dark as
No,
that.
absolutely not. But with all the, the bombing the ship and becoming dead runners and stuff, I was like, I don't know, this is kind of...
But it's a text that would appeal to boys and girls, because
boys
it has
and girls,
that, and
you've got your female protagonist, but then you've got your male narrator, so you've got like two
voices
there.
But you also have the appeal to the older audience as well,
absolutely.
through Hoyd and the humour and everything that's built into it. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 because there's a complexity there that it deals with, or there's, in its simplicity, it deals with so many complex things.
Absolutely.
I think it's a wonderful book for young people to kind of read and to engage with, in terms of, even look at the conversation that we have had tonight, because I honestly didn't think, I was like, what am I going to say?
Yeah.
And I am never stuck for words ever, as you know, you've had to listen to me your whole life.
Yeah.
But that's when
only
you're
once
supposed to disagree with me
right.
at that point. No, that's
you
not
heard the
true.
Girl Boss conversation.
So next week, we are going back to the tried and tested thriller genre again. We are going to look at The Couple at number 9 by Claire Douglas, the Sunday Times bestseller. And again, hoping that it's going to, I haven't started to read this yet. I know that you have. So I'm hoping that I'm not going to be disappointed.
It's a thriller. It could go either way.
The next episode could be another explosive one.
Have fun.
We look forward to seeing you then. So, Christina, how did you manage that
I
tonight?
did it for you. I really thought really hard.
Did you? You had to.
It was hard.
Okay. Well, until next week. Cheers.